The Vengeful Fairy. I once heard a story about a young woman who was content with her life. She had a good job, a loving family, and a comfortable home. However, she always felt like something was missing. One day, she stumbled upon a hidden door in her home that led to a secret room. Inside this room was a magical mirror that showed her her true self. She was shocked to see that she was actually a beautiful fairy. The mirror also showed her that she had been living in a boring human world and that she was meant to be in a magical kingdom. With the help of the mirror, she was able to find her way to the fairy kingdom where she belonged. The young woman was overjoyed to finally be in the fairy kingdom. She quickly made friends with the other fairies and started to enjoy all the magical experiences the kingdom had to offer. She was especially happy to be able to use her own magic to help others. She quickly realized that she was meant to be in the fairy kingdom. One day, while the young woman was out exploring the fairy kingdom, she ran into a group of mean fairies. They began to pick on her and make fun of her. The young woman tried to ignore them, but they kept bothering her. Eventually, they started to use their magic to make her life difficult. They would cast spells on her that made her lose her things or trip and fall. The young woman became very frustrated and began to doubt if the fairy kingdom was the right place for her. One night, she couldn't take it anymore and decided to run away from the fairy kingdom. She didn't know where she was going or what she would do, but she couldn't stand being there anymore. As she was leaving, she heard the mean fairies laughing and mocking her. This only made her more determined to get away from them. The young woman ended up in a dark forest. She was scared and didn't know what to do. Suddenly, she heard a voice calling her name. It was the voice of the magical mirror. It told her that she needed to go back to the fairy kingdom and face her fears. The young woman knew that the mirror was right. She turned around and bravely went back to the fairy kingdom. The young woman marched up to the mean fairies and yelled at them to stop picking on her. She told them that she wasn't going to put up with their teasing anymore and that she was going to stay in the fairy kingdom no matter what. The mean fairies were so surprised by her outburst that they didn't know what to say. They apologized to her and promised to stop teasing her. The young woman told the mean fairies their apology was not enough and that she was going to get revenge. She said she was going to use her magic to make their lives difficult. She cast spells on them that made them trip and fall. She also made their food taste terrible. The mean fairies soon realized that it was better to leave the young woman alone. The young woman became so obsessed with getting revenge on the mean fairies that she started to neglect her other duties in the fairy kingdom. She would spend all her time planning new ways to make their lives difficult. The other fairies started to become worried about her, and they began to distance themselves from her. One day, the young woman's revenge went too far. She cast a spell on the mean fairies that made them start growing mushrooms all over their bodies. The mushrooms were poisonous and the mean fairies started to become very ill. The young woman was so pleased with herself that she didn't realize that she had gone too far. Soon, the other fairies began to realize how serious the situation was. They went to the young woman and begged her to reverse the spell. The young woman refused and said that she was going to keep the spell on the mean fairies until they learned their lesson. The other fairies didn't know what to do. They were so worried about the mean fairies that they decided to go to the fairy queen and tell her what was happening. The queen was very angry when she heard what the young woman had done. She went to the young woman and demanded that she reverse the spell immediately. The young woman refused again and said that she was going to keep the spell on the mean fairies until they learned their lesson. The queen became so angry that she used her own magic to force the young woman to reverse the spell. The young woman had no choice but to comply. The young woman was so angry at being forced to reverse the spell that she vowed to get revenge on the queen. She began to plot and scheme ways to make the queen's life difficult. Eventually, She came up with a plan that would make the queen suffer greatly. The young woman used her magic to create a powerful storm. The storm was so strong that it destroyed the queen's palace. The young woman then turned the queen into a frog. The mean fairies were so worried about the queen that they decided to go to the young woman and beg her to reverse the spell. The young woman refused and said that the queen deserved to suffer. The mean fairies didn't know what to do. They were so worried about the queen that they decided to go to the fairy godmother and ask for her help. The fairy godmother was very angry when she heard what the young woman had done. The fairy godmother used her magic to reverse the spell that the young woman had placed on the queen. She then used her magic to banish the young woman from the fairy kingdom forever. The young woman was filled with sorrow and remorse for what she had done. She knew that she had gone too far and that she had lost the fairy kingdom forever. She wished that she had accepted the mean fairy's apology and that she had not been so quick to seek revenge. The young woman was so filled with sorrow and remorse for what she had done that she ended her life. The moral of the story is that revenge is never worth it in the end. It will only make you lose the things that you care about the most.